Hall of Fame all my life, but I never saw anything. Now
Soft, contemplative music fades in, then lowers to a background hum. Okay, so let's talk about this. I've just watched a video. It's titled Dave Chappelle on What You Do in Your Lifetime. And I've been sitting here for a few minutes, just letting it settle. Because if you know anything about Dave Chappelle, you know that a title like that, it's a promise. It's a promise that he's not going to give you some motivational, Instagram infographic, live, laugh, love kind of answer. It's going to be something that makes you shift in your seat. And I think that's exactly what this is. It's not a lecture. It's not a commencement speech. It's a story, or maybe it's a few stories woven together that circle around this central, terrifying, and beautiful idea. What are you actually doing with the time you have? He starts, and as always, the setting is everything. It's intimate. He's on a stage, but it feels like a small room. He's got that relaxed posture, that unhurried rhythm. You get the sense that he's thought about this a lot, not just for this moment, but for years. He's not trying to sell you anything. He's just sharing a conclusion he's come to. And the first thing that strikes me is how he reframes the whole concept of a lifetime. We tend to think of it in these grand, sweeping arcs. You know, the milestones, the career, the legacy. But he talks about it in terms of proximity, physical proximity. He tells this story, and I'm paraphrasing here, about a friend of his, a fellow comedian, who passed away. And he talks about how, in the days and weeks after this friend died, all these people came out of the woodwork. People who hadn't called in years, people who were suddenly posting tributes, talking about how much this person meant to them, how much they loved them. And Dave's point isn't to be cynical about it. It's not to say those tributes are fake. It's to ask a question that's so simple it's almost painful. Where were you? Where were you when it counted? Where were you when the person was still here? When they were in the middle of their own lifetime? When a phone call would have meant something? This is where he starts to build his argument, and it's so subtle. He's not saying be a better friend. He's not giving you a list of commandments. He's talking about the weight of presence. He's talking about the fact that you have a finite amount of energy, a finite amount of attention, and a finite amount of time that you can actually physically show up for someone. And he uses himself as an example. He talks about walking away from his show, Chappelle's show, at the height of its success. And we all know the story, but hearing him contextualize it within this idea of a lifetime, it hits differently. He frames it not as a career move, but as a survival move. He talks about how he felt the environment around him changing, the money, the pressure, the expectations. And he realized that the people around him, the people in his professional orbit, they were treating his lifetime, his one precious, unpredictable lifetime, as a resource to be extracted. They saw his time as a commodity, and he had to make the excruciating choice to reclaim it. That's the core of it, I think, the central tension he's exploring. The world is constantly trying to tell you what to do with your lifetime. It's telling you to monetize it, to optimize it, to turn it into content, into output, into something that serves a system. And what Dave is saying in his meandering, hilarious, and profound way is that the real rebellion, the real act of agency, is to decide for yourself. He gets into this thing about legacy too, and this is where I really started to feel it. Because we're all so obsessed with legacy now, aren't we? We're told to build a personal brand and leave a mark, and he just dismantles that. He talks about how legacy is for the living. It's for the people who come after you. The people who will remember you aren't going to remember your awards or your sales numbers. They're going to remember how you made them feel. They're going to remember whether you showed up. And he tells this beautiful, heartbreaking story. Again, I'm summarizing, about his father. He talks about the wisdom his father imparted to him, not through long lectures, but through actions, through being there. He talks about how his father taught him to see the humanity in people, to understand struggle, to find the humor in darkness. And you realize as he's telling it that that is what he's talking about. His father didn't set out to build a legacy. He set out to raise his son. And in doing that, he shaped the entire trajectory of Dave's life, and by extension, the lives of millions of people who have been touched by Dave's art. So what does that mean for us? For the people watching this video, sitting in our rooms, scrolling on our phones, feeling that quiet anxiety about whether we're doing enough. It means, I think, that we need to zoom in. We need to stop looking at the horizon and start looking at what's immediately in front of us. Who is in your physical proximity? Who are the people whose lives you actually touch day to day? Your partner, your kids, your parents, your friends, your neighbors, the people you work with. That's your lifetime. That's where it's happening. Not in the abstract future, not in the legacy you hope to leave, but in the messy, complicated, unglamorous present. He talks about this in the context of his own decision to stay in Ohio, to live in a small town, to raise his kids there, to be a present father. And people didn't understand it. They thought he was wasting his potential, that he was hiding. And he makes the point that for him, that was the point. He was choosing his life. He was choosing to be a father and a neighbor and a member of a community over being a character in the spectacle of fame. He was protecting his lifetime. And he doesn't say this with judgment. That's the thing about Dave Chappelle. Even when he's making these huge philosophical points, he's not standing on a pedestal. He's laughing. He's telling a joke about a guy trying to buy weed. He's making you laugh so hard that the truth slips in through the side door. Because if he just stood there and said, "Your priorities are wrong," you'd reject it. But when he gets you laughing, when he has you in that state of open-heartedness, then he drops the real payload. The payload for me in this video comes when he circles back to that friend who passed away, and he talks about the people who came to the funeral. And he says, essentially, that the funeral is not for the person who died. The person who died is beyond caring. The funeral is for the living. It's the one last chance for the people who didn't show up when it mattered, to stand around and pretend they did. And he says with this look in his eye that's equal parts sadness and defiance, that he doesn't want that. He doesn't want a big funeral with people crying and talking about what he meant to them. He wants the showing up to happen while he's still here. And that's the challenge, isn't it? That's the commentary. That's what this entire video is. It's a challenge to everyone watching. It's a challenge to stop deferring your life. Stop deferring your relationships. Stop saying, "I'll call them next week," or "I'll make time after this project is done," or "I'll really start living when I retire." Because the clock is ticking, and it's not ticking for some abstract version of you. It's ticking for you, right now, sitting here, watching this. He also touches on something that I think is really relevant to our current moment, which is the way we've outsourced our sense of purpose. We're constantly looking for external validation. We're looking for a cause, a movement, a trend to attach ourselves to so we can feel like we're part of something bigger. And Dave's point, subtly, is that the biggest thing you can be a part of is your own life. The people in your immediate circle. The small, unglamorous acts of care and presence. He doesn't say it directly, but you can feel him pushing back against this idea that you have to be famous or influential or important to have a meaningful lifetime. He's lived that life. He had the fame, the money, the cultural power. And he walked away from a huge chunk of it because he realized it was costing him his actual life, his actual lived day-to-day existence. So what does it mean to do something with your lifetime? According to this video, it means to be present. It means to choose your people and then show up for them. It means to have the courage to say no to the things that are trying to consume your time. Even the good things, even the successful things, even the things everyone tells you you should want. If they're pulling you away from what you know, deep down, is your real work. Your real work being your relationships, your community, your own peace of mind. And that's the radical part. In a culture that tells you to hustle, to scale, to optimize, to turn everything into a growth opportunity, he's saying, nah, shrink, focus, be there. It's almost anti-ambition, but it's not. It's redefining ambition. It's saying the ambition shouldn't be for your career or your status. The ambition should be for the quality of your life, the richness of your connections, the depth of your presence. I think about the title again, Dave Chappelle on What You Do in Your Lifetime, and I realize it's a double entendre. On the surface, it's about what you accomplish, what you build, what you leave behind. But underneath, it's about what you do with the actual, physical, finite resource of your time. The minutes, the hours, the days. Who are you giving them to? Who are you withholding them from? And why? There's no 5-step plan. He doesn't tell you to quit your job or move to a farm. What he does is hold up a mirror, and in that mirror, you see yourself. All your busyness, all your excuses, all your deferred phone calls and postponed visits. And you have to sit with that. You have to ask yourself the question he's implicitly asking. If you knew for a fact that you had 10 years left, what would you change? If you knew you had 1 year, if you knew you had 1 month, who would you call? What would you say? What would you stop doing? And his point is, why wait? Why do we need a terminal diagnosis to give us permission to live? Why do we treat our time as if it's infinite, when everything about life tells us it's the most finite thing we have? He ends the video, and the way he ends it is so classic. He doesn't end with a big dramatic conclusion. He ends with a quiet moment, a laugh, a shrug, a look that says, "That's all I got. The rest is up to you." And it's frustrating, because you want him to tie it up in a bow. You want him to tell you exactly what to do. But that's the whole point. That's the respect he's showing you. He's not going to tell you what to do with your lifetime. He's just going to remind you that it's yours, and that you're the one who has to answer for it. So I'm sitting here after watching this, and I'm thinking about my own life. I'm thinking about the people I haven't called. I'm thinking about the ways I've let the noise of the world, the ambitions, the anxieties, the endless scroll, distract me from the people right in front of me. And I'm feeling that uncomfortable mix of inspiration and accountability. It's one of those pieces of art, and this is what Dave Chappelle does when he's at his best. That doesn't just entertain you. It sits in your chest. It follows you out of the room. It makes you want to be better. Not better in the eyes of the world, but better in the small, quiet, crucial ways that only the people closest to you will ever know. And maybe that's the ultimate commentary. The video is 15 minutes long. I've probably talked for that long just trying to unpack it. But the real time that matters isn't the time I spent watching it or talking about it. It's what I do after I turn off the screen, who I call, how I listen, where I put my attention. That's the challenge. That's the gift. That's what he's handing you. The rest, as he says, is up to you. Pause. All right, I'm going to go make a phone call. Soft music fades back in, then out.